Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Office Blow Daz.
Office Blow Aidan.
Gaynor.
Okay, 7 myths British people believe about America. Now, with us going to America this month,
Yes.
in a couple of weeks, we'll
Yeah.
be hitting the US, across
We
the
will.
pond. What myths do you think British people believe about America?
I reckon there's quite a few, to be fair.
Yeah,
I
the
think there will be a
loud.
lot. Yeah.
Is that a myth, though?
Is that a myth?
I was going
Or
to
a
say.
fact? No, I'm looking forward to going.
Yeah, I am as well.
Looking forward to trying a few different places that I've never tried when I was in the USA.
Do you know what I'm
Yeah,
going
it's
to
going
do?
to be like going to for the first time, really. For
I'm
me.
going to try grits because
Yep.
I tried them once and they were horrible. And everybody said to me, you've not had the correct ones then.
Yep.
So I'm definitely going to try
And we're going
grits.
to a little state. We're going to start in alphabetical order, so we're going to Alabama.
Or we're going to end up in Wyoming, yeah. Alright, you ready?
Yeah, go for it. 7 myths British people believe about America.
Hello, this video is sponsored by BritBox, the premier streaming service for Britain's most beloved TV shows. I'm Lawrence Brown and I'm on a quest to uncover all of the memos that Britain and America lost in the pond, and one of those memos pertains to myths. Specifically, myths that British people, including myself at one point, believed about the United States of America.
One myth is definitely like people think that you're just going to get like shot when you
Yeah.
go. People think that there's like more shootings than there actually is, probably.
Yeah, it's,
Even though there is probably a lot.
When we first went, everyone was like, "You got a gun?" And I'm
Yeah.
like, "No, do I need
Yeah,
one?"
literally. I think they overreact to it.
Yeah, they do.
But it is amazing what 14 years of living in the United States will do to your understanding and your perceptions about this very country. For instance, I learned early on that they don't have Cornish pasties, and I learned slightly less earlier on, so later, that Michigan has them. But I don't live in Michigan, so one way or another I still have to have them imported. A quick reminder that if you're not subscribed to this channel, you can change that fact about your life right now. But these myths go way beyond the absence of quintessentially British food. And so now that I've lived here for about a seventh of a century, it's time to outline some of the myths that us British believe about America and Americans. This is a funny one, because I think television gives us this notion that Americans do all live in giant houses like the McAllisters do in Home Alone, but it's not entirely the case. Sure, I mean, statistically, American houses are on average larger than their UK counterparts. There are a number of reasons for this, which I outlined in this video. But to say that all Americans live in really large houses is a complete fabrication of anything resembling the truth. And I was a good example of this before I became a YouTube sensation. Because when I first moved to Chicago, we had to do things on a budget. Between me and my wife, we weren't making a great income, and this is a major city. So we had to sort of settle for an apartment whose dimensions were 300 square feet. And for those of you who don't know, that's about the size of a shoebox, roughly. You know, we had to leave our shoes outside the door. That's how small it was. And it is worth reiterating, I think, that the cost of living in the United States does fluctuate massively across the country. When I lived in Indiana, just one state over, we were paying about $530 a month. That's basically unheard of in Chicago.
Wow.
And it's certainly unheard of in New York City, which of course was the city in which the show Friends is set. And I think it's shows like that that gave us this impression that Americans were all living in big apartments.
Kind of a good one, that.
Yeah.
And speaking of houses, I was alerted to a tweet recently from a British person who couldn't believe that American addresses go way up into the thousands, and their belief on this was that every street in the United States has thousands of houses on it. And this was a belief that I used to have, because the country is absolutely massive, so you almost expect it to house that many people. But the thing is, there are way fewer people in this country per square mile than there are in Britain, so it doesn't add up. And that's when I got looking into it. And in a previous video I outlined it doesn't really work like that. On any given street they don't start at the number 1 and then end at 10,000. Often, and it's the case here in Chicago, you'll usually have a string of houses, for example, all in the 6,000s on a given street, and that's because it's about 6 miles from the center of downtown. 1 mile in from that they're all 5,000s, another mile they're all 4,000s, etc, etc.
I didn't know that.
Now, not every city in the US does it from
Never
the
even thought
center of
about
the
it.
city. It could be from another part of the city or just some other central point. But that's sort of a general rule for how the numbering works on US houses.
That's going to come in useful on GeoGuessr.
Yeah,
They're all
true.
looking at the streets, and it's like, and it says like the numbers like it points to 11,000 to 11,900.
Now you know you're 11,000
11 miles out.
miles
But if you,
outside the
if you
city
think
centre.
about it, our home numbers, the door number was like 4 digits. It was like 1345 West Front Street.
No, we lived at 41 and number 5.
Yeah, but I'm saying that long road.
Yeah, the long road we did, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that was just a long road.
You do?
Just 1,000 houses on that road.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of houses on that road. Yeah, because I think it might have started at number 1.
That's debunked my myth.
This one comes up again and again, that the United States is such a young country that it basically doesn't have a history. And I've always thought of this perception of America to be quite a lazy one. Because even if you go back to 1776 through to the present day, yes, it is a short amount of time in comparison to the history of Britain, but think about all of the insane things that happened in that period. And even if you ignore all that, there's one thing that we tend to forget because we don't get taught it very deeply in Britain, and that is the thousands of years of native history that happened before we even turned up. I was absolutely blown away, not literally, that would be weird. When I went to Cahokia Mounds here in Illinois, many hundreds of years ago, Cahokia Mounds used to be a native city, and it had about 20,000 people, which might not sound like a lot by both American and British standards, but back in the day, that was more than London. And I once read about this volcano eruption that happened in present-day Oregon a few thousand years ago. And this eruption was witnessed and recorded by Native Americans who were in the area at the time. And long story short, they basically saw the origins of Crater Lake, which is absolutely huge. To be honest, both Brits and Americans love their myths. I mean, we've got the Loch Ness Monster, you've got a cryogenically frozen Walt Disney, and this new mystery on BritBox, Sherwood, has got...
Modern day Robin Hood.
Can we not do that?
Oh.
Start giving nicknames to wanted murderers and the press gets excited.
And I know what you're thinking. Ooh, Lawrence, why are you watching a gripping television show with your cat? Aren't you supposed to be editing this video? And the answer is yes. But you know what it's like. You sit down to watch just one episode of a really riveting show inspired by real-life murders and you end up binge-watching the entire thing. Trust me, I did the same thing with other shows like Line of Duty, The Responder, Why Didn't They Ask Evans, all of which, of course, are available on BritBox.
Show me your salute for the sheriff.
It's over here, that as well, isn't it?
I thought that was a salute.
No, that's American.
Isn't that where it's meant to be? Can you not tell by the name?
No, I think it's aimed at overseas. We used to have BBC America when we were in the USA. And I think BritBox is aimed at those who are overseas.
But want to watch British shows?
Want to watch British shows, yeah. But it's a thing over here. It's, you can subscribe to over here.
British, American, British, American.
You can start streaming titles like these today via your smartphone, tablet, desktop, Chromecast, Apple TV or Roku device, as well as LG and Samsung smart TVs. Head to britbox.com/lostinthepond and use the promo code LOSTINTHEPOND when signing up for a monthly subscription, and you'll get 50% off your first month. The link is also in my description below. This one is embarrassing for me because years ago I believed that Canada and the United States were basically the same country. And the reason that I believe that is, number one, I was 12, so cut me some slack. And number two, my only sort of exposure to both countries was through the people, was through the way they spoke. And to my young ears, which couldn't yet differentiate these two accents, Macho Man Randy Savage and Bret Hart basically had the same accent, just with an entirely different timbre. And that's all I had to go on. And I think it's what a lot of British people have to go on, because I still occasionally see those comments. Oh, what is the difference between Canada and America? Or is it...
I can't still really tell the difference between the accent.
You can when you hear a Canadian speak, and they got the...
It sounds a little bit more Irish, I think.
It depends if that's from the West Coast.
Yeah.
If you get someone from Vancouver, I think they do have an Irish sort of twang to the voice. So
Why is that?
Don't know. But I've picked up on that. I agree with that.
Yeah.
But if also you get someone from the East Coast,
Toronto,
the Toronto sort of areas, when they say I'm going out, they say oot as opposed to out.
Oot.
And they've got a ooh sounding names, haven't they? Ooh sounding like accent when they talk about different
a
things.
lot of Americans thought we were Australian though.
Yeah, because we ended on the up. When you
Similar.
in your question, you ended it on an up to fit in the American way, if you want. But when I was in the pub last week and I was talking to them ice hockey players,
What are you talking about?
they were all,
Yeah.
ooh, and I went, Canadian. Straight away I thought he's Canadian. Him.
They looked like ice hockey players. They all had long hair.
Yeah, they all definitely did look like hockey players, didn't they?
Not wrestlers.
Yeah, they were massive. They were dead tall.
Yeah, exactly.
It's essentially that one has Mounties and the other doesn't. And it's only since I moved here that I've become super aware of the substantial difference between the two countries. Completely different healthcare systems, completely different food, completely different use of English. Right, in Britain we call it the loo, in America they call it a restroom, in Canada they call it a washroom. And I've seen all manner of different examples of that kind of thing. In America they don't celebrate Boxing Day, in Canada they do. The Canadian dollar is different to the the American dollar. In some ways, they go with British English in places that America doesn't. And now that I'm older and I've listened to some of the regionalisms throughout the United States, even the way Americans speak is different to how Canadians speak. I'm not an expert on that, so I'm not going to go into too much detail, but these differences certainly go way beyond how the two countries pronounce the word about. I've touched on this before, but I couldn't really do a video without including it in this list. This perception that Americans are loud and boisterous. And I can understand on some level where that comes from, because I think the way Americans speak, it comes from a different part of the throat. So it's a bit more projected, right? Whereas us Brits, it's more sort of, I don't know, understated a lot of the time. I think another reason that we think Americans are loud is how they present themselves in films. There might even have been a time in my life where I thought all Americans were loud just because Jim Carrey was. He's Canadian, isn't he? He is Canadian. Culturally speaking, I definitely have found that Americans speak at a higher volume when they're in restaurants together.
I was going to say that I've seen like so many videos on my phone of like people having like two people having like a nice dinner and they're like recording, all you can hear is like a table of 4 or a table of 6 of Americans, and you can only hear their conversation. Like you can hear the whole thing.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie, I don't know how loud we are at the football on our table because we've got quite a big table. But there was a table behind us the other day. I could hear them quite loud. And they were all American.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we were like Americans. They were dead loud.
You can always tell. You don't even need to hear them speak to know they're American.
When he walked in, I looked at him and I thought, he's American.
Yeah.
And then he sat down and he started talking. I was like,
so because you can tell when they go to like the club shop and he's got like a Man City hat on and stuff.
Yeah, he's got the scarf, the hat,
Yeah.
Pete cap. You know, the other one's got the woolly. Partner has a woolly hat on.
Yeah.
But it's definitely stand out.
Yeah.
Are examples of the opposite being true. On match day, after we've had a pint or 6, you know, we're singing the songs of our team who we love because they happen to be situated in the town that we were born in. And it's just what we do when we leave a nightclub, which, you know, I haven't done in 20 years. But when we did, you know, I'd be on the street yelling at traffic cones because that might have just been me. But what I'm saying is, when we get drunk, we very much give Americans a run for their money.
Absolutely.
There's a loud person in all of us, right? And once we free ourselves of our inhibitions, we can let out all of the decibels we want. That's not a call to action. It's merely an observation. This is only funny, not because of the image of Americans walking around with bomb bags on, but it's because we call them bomb bags and you call them fanny packs, and it's bloody hilarious. It is also partly the visual, because bomb bags have never been cool, but this notion, which I occasionally read, that Americans are just always walking around wearing one, is very laughable, especially as somebody who's lived here 14 years. So it's quite dumbfounding, this one. I'm not saying that all British people think this way, but the ones that do, I'd be very interested to hear, do they think that way? Because
that's become a new thing again. It's all the kids have started carrying bum bags, but they don't wear them
Yeah,
around
they
the waist.
wear
They wear them on the shoulder.
Yeah, they're not bum bags really, are they?
They are.
They're like man bags. They're different. I've got one, and it's not like it doesn't look any. It's not the same shape or anything. It's like more. It's not.
It is.
What are you talking about? Have you seen it?
The bum bag.
The CP one I've got. Yeah.
The one I bought you. Yeah, it's a bum bag.
It's not.
It is. It's a fanny pack.
I've not worn it in ages.
No, I know. But
Another stereotypical thing about Americans is they wear the keys on the
yeah, there's a lot of people who wear the keys attached to the
they hook
like
it to the
belt strap.
Belt strap, yeah.
Kind of hanging down.
But yeah, the bum bags. They're
But
definitely
I'm saying to you, the one I've got looks nothing like the one we've just seen.
It does.
It's got a zip across the top.
Yeah, of course it has. Otherwise, how would you open it?
It's got that design of like a small
It's
band.
like a circle.
Yeah,
It's
but
more like a circle.
Yeah, it's a different design. It's a different sort of
Shape.
style or shape.
It's
but
not.
the
Mate,
same.
you can't put it on yourself like that.
Bet you could.
No, you can't. The strap is too big. You have to put it. It's like the strap's big enough to go around your body like that.
Show me when we get home.
I will, mate. I'll take a photo and everything.
Yeah.
because they met an American in 1994 and they've just held on to that belief? Or are American tourists still wearing bum bags? Do people carry cash? But I don't. I can tell you this, I don't have a bum bag / fanny pack radar, right? I am not constantly surveilling the populace to see whether they do or do not have a fanny pack. But my feeling is I don't remember seeing one in a while. So I think this is one very time-specific stereotype that can now be laid to rest, right? And yes, I thought I'd include one that was quite topical, not just because we are in the autumn, but also because I mentioned this fact on my YouTube short yesterday. Now, while for reasons that were laid out in that YouTube short, Americans prefer the term fall, I was surprised to find that the word autumn was pretty common among Americans. I don't know if this is a recent thing, like the whole country just woke up one morning and watched Lost in the Pond and thought to themselves, yes, we're changing things now. Or if it's just sort of always been here as an alternative to fall. And you might be thinking, ooh, Lauren,
What do you want to know?
I use the phrase quite often when we're in autumn or fall, autumnal.
Yeah.
So I'll say it's a very autumnal night. Do Americans use the phrase autumnal?
I don't think so.
Mate, I don't even think English people use that phrase. It's just you.
Actually,
I've never
the funny
used
thing,
it in my
the
life.
funny thing is when you were before you said that, that first thing that came to me was autumnal.
I wonder if Americans do use. Let us know in the comments if you use the phrase autumnal. Because I said to you, we were out the other day. I went, it's proper autumnal night tonight. It's like it's going dark evening, leaves all over the place.
Yeah.
You know, cold, sort of like misty air. It was very autumnal.
What, did you learn a new word a couple of days ago or something?
No, I used it for a
Well,
long
there's
So I
time.
was going to use it as much
I
as
use
you
it.
can.
I use it at least a third of the year, quarter of the year.
Aren't there many surprising word alternatives that Americans use that Brits don't know about? And the answer to that is yes. I merely brought this one up so I could make that very point. This is undoubtedly a pandemic era thing, but I've seen an increasing number of Americans using the word jab to mean shot. I
Yeah.
once worked with an American colleague who liked to use the word bonkers. So in part because of the internet, just as Britain is taking on quite a few Americanisms, I think the same is true in reverse, and it will be very interesting to look further into those details. And those are just a handful of myths that some Brits believe about America and Americans. Let me know in the comments some of the myths that you've had to dispel.
I never would have thought that they'd use the word autumn. I thought that was just an English thing.
Autumnal. Not autumn. Autumnal.
But you said that they don't just use the word fall, they actually use the word
Yeah,
autumn
it's like
as well.
using
I've
the
never,
word
I've never
autumn
used
now.
anyone use. I've never heard that.
Another
from
thing
American.
as well is when we first moved there, you didn't really have sidewalks. We have like pavements at the side of every road. Really, they don't.
Yeah, there was a lot of
What?
roads we used to walk down. There was no pavements, was there?
Yeah, they didn't have a sidewalk.
Yeah, when
wouldn't
you went
have
to the main
thought that.
cities like New York or I don't know,
Yeah.
Chicago, places
Yeah.
like that. But when you were like in the
Suburbs.
yeah, there wasn't really many sidewalks
Because then people drove everywhere.
Yeah.
You would just have like sidewalks
In your little
outside
community.
your house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, I guess we'll find some of these myths, especially the bum bag myth,
Yeah.
when we go to America this month.
I didn't think that was a thing anyway. I didn't think all Americans wore bum bags.
No,
So
no,
I
it's,
didn't think
it's
you know
another
what I mean?
thing.
Yeah.
It's you sometimes do see it when you're travelling in Europe. You sort of like see people carrying them around. Usually they are American.
Yeah.
Who are carrying them around. Sort of
When
thing.
we
But you
went
see-
to Santorini, there was quite a lot with
yeah, a
them.
lot of Americans there
Yeah.
with bum bags or
Yeah.
fanny packs.
Yeah.
But also when you go to if you go to like mainland Spain and places like that now into some of the resorts, you see a lot of Brits carrying them.
Yeah.
So like especially the older generation.
If
My
I go on
mum's got
holiday,
one.
if I go on holiday, I'll wear one.
Yeah.
If I go to like a festival, I'll wear one because I'm not keeping everything in my pockets.
I've got one for the football.
Yeah.
I've stopped using it because I bought one of those over the shoulder bags and all I need is like
Yeah.
my ID
Yeah.
and
Everything goes in my pockets. If you don't fit my pocket, I don't need it.
yeah.
Wallet, keys, money. That's it.
Yeah.
Got the phone. That's it now, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Mine just
sometimes
fits my
you need more.
phone and my ID.
Like what?
AirPods.
AirPods.
You just need some stuff, don't
That
you?
reminds me, you've still got my AirPods
Another time.
Yeah.
that you borrowed one day and I've had about 5 months.
Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed that. Don't forget like and subscribe. We'll catch you on the next one.
Cheers.
Bye.
Cheers.